With Graham Stewart and Laura McKeever this morning. We're 10 days away from knowing who will be Scotland's next First Minister. But it seems the current incumbent, Nicola Sturgeon, has some unfinished business. There's growing speculation that before she leaves office, she plans to issue a formal apology on behalf of the Scottish Government to the thousands of unmarried mothers forced to give up their babies to adoption. Well, Fiona Henderson was forcibly adopted as an infant in 1982 and has set up the Scottish Adult Adoptees Movement. Good morning to you, Fiona.
Good morning.
What would it mean to hear an apology from the First Minister on behalf of the Scottish Government?
I think it's a very emotional moment for all to even hear that we've got to this point. But it would definitely be give the mothers and those affected recognition and acknowledgement to the suffering that's taken place and the violations that have happened. I think it would begin a healing process for many within the community, and it's a massive step for all. So yes, it's a big moment for our community.
Before we discuss that suffering, explain to us first of all why forced adoptions typically happen and what kind of circumstances would the authorities have forced a parent to give up a child?
In most cases, around the time that we're talking about, it was due to coercion, due to not being unmarried or being in a financial situation that you just couldn't afford to raise the child. So some mothers were taken to mother and baby homes, and the system was set up in which the child was then taken very early on, usually around 10 days. And given to adopting parents who at that point would have been strangers to the child, contact for the first 18 years, and then it was up to the adoptee. So many mothers were unaware when they handed over their children if they would ever see them again.
And this was happening, in your case, it was 1982. That's quite recently.
Yes, it is. Yes. So, yes, my case was the same. Yes, I was taken at 1982, a closed adoption. My birth mother didn't know if I was alive or dead until I made contact. And I didn't know I had siblings, and I didn't know, much about their life either. So closed adoptions were quite difficult for all who are involved.
Yeah, 40 years ago, maybe not that recent, but you know what I mean? It's something you sort of associated with previous decades. But it's not just the mothers being forced to give up their babies. It's children like yourself that have had to live with the consequences. Just explain what some of the problems and challenges have been.
Some of the things have been a deep misunderstanding within adult services, a lack of mental health support and acknowledgement to adoption within adverse childhood experiences. There's also a real problem with an adoption order because we cannot set them aside. So we cannot leave this order that is placed upon us as children. So there's many different problems. There's also issues with our files that have been destroyed or damaged. We go back and we might not possibly know of the true extent of the damage that's been done within the family. And it can also cause massive problems within our own adopted families who, there's huge emotional turmoil for all involved.
You don't even have something as simple as a birth certificate, do you?
No, we don't. So our birth certificates are voided during the adoption process, and we are given through the adoption process, an adoption order to use as identification. So many adoptees would like to have their original birth certificates reinstated to be able to use that identity because that is their true identity when they were born.
And that must cause all sorts of problems in everyday life, but also in terms of just tracing family members.
It does, because we don't actually have any rights to that identity. So it causes some real confusion when we're dealing with going back into our biological family. We might not have rights to medical information. We might not have rights to criminal justice or criminal background checks. So a few different problems.
And there are other problems, such as, if you had a mother who was in an abusive relationship, perhaps they were raped or something like that, there could be a danger to children, and you wouldn't necessarily know about that danger.
No, we have absolutely no right to be able to do a criminal background check, to be able to find out if the details within our adoption files hold any criminal convictions on the people handed that are in the files that are handed to us. Yes, so it makes it quite difficult for adoptees who are in that area of tracing.
So really, if this apology from the First Minister comes, that's really just for you the start of a process, that there needs to be changes to the laws, changes to regulations in order to make your life better.
Yes, I feel that there needs to be reform and changes to give a safeguarding for people and to be able to show that there is support for adoptees, whether that be within mental health, whether that be during the tracing process, whether that be while in reunion. There's just such a lack of support and awareness for adoptees that it really does need to have much more conversations with government to try and restore some of the safeguarding issues that arise.
And the talks that you have with government, are they fruitful? Do you get the impression that change might be on the way?
I am forever hopeful. One of the things that I find interesting is that we are looking at implementation of the rights of children. So I hope that that will lead to much greater rights for adoptees. Things like an adoptee knowing of their adoption status is extremely important to me, so we don't have adoptees coming forward at 30, 40, 60 plus, and they've only just found out that they're adopted.
Okay, Fiona Henderson from the Scottish Adult Adoptees Movement.
17 minutes